you'll find ours. And as always, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Protesters were ushered out of Missouri's state senate after it approved a referendum on abortion rights. It would ban most abortions with exceptions for rape and incest, and would repeal an abortion rights amendment that voters approved 6 months ago. The newly proposed constitutional amendment would go back to voters in November 2026 or sooner. AP correspondent Karen Shamas reports on peace talks between Ukraine and Russia and Turkey.
Russian officials say Russia's delegation has arrived in Istanbul for peace talks with Ukraine, but it seems Russian President Vladimir Putin is not there. According to a list released by the Kremlin on Wednesday night, Russian President Vladimir Putin was not part of the delegation, prompting criticism from Western officials that Moscow isn't serious about the peace effort. Vladimir Medinsky, an aide to Putin, will lead the Russian delegation that will also include 3 other senior officials, according to the Kremlin. Putin also appointed 4 lower-level officials as experts for the talks. Earlier this week, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky challenged the Russian leader to meet in person in Turkey. Ukraine's presidential advisor has said that Zelensky will sit at the table only with Putin. I'm Karen Shamas.
NATO foreign ministers also gathered in Turkey Thursday, where they debated an American demand to massively ramp up defense investment to 5% of GDP over the next 7 years. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says more investment and military equipment are needed to deal with the threat posed by Russia and terrorism, but also by China. President Trump addressed troops at the Al Udeid military base in Qatar. He started his speech thanking the troops and discussing his Mideast trip so far, then spoke about America's military power.
As president, my priority is to end conflicts, not start them, but I will never hesitate to wield American power if it's necessary to defend the United States of America or our partners.
This is AP News. AP correspondent Ben Thomas reports South Africa's president is coming to the White House next week.
The meeting follows the Trump administration's admission of 59 white South Africans into the U.S. on Monday as refugees. Trump has claimed Afrikaners are being persecuted in the black majority country. He issued an executive order in February cutting all U.S. funding to South Africa. Ramaphosa says the Trump administration's criticisms are based on misinformation about South Africa's laws, and whites are not being singled out. Ben Thomas, Washington.
A 23-year-old social media influencer was shot to death while doing a TikTok live stream at a beauty salon in Mexico state of Jalisco. Valeria Marquez appeared to have been speaking to a delivery man off camera Tuesday when she was shot twice. Hours later, a former congressman with the Mexican PRI party, Luis Armando Córdoba Diaz, was also shot dead in a cafe in the area. Prosecutors in Jalisco are still investigating. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty showers and thunderstorms possible late today. Otherwise, a blend of clouds and sunshine develops, a high in the low 90s. Breezy winds out of the south increase around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms early on, decreasing clouds, a low near 62. Friday's chance for showers and storms late, high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 63.
Save big money and start your spring project with help from Menards. We offer a huge selection of Bonnie plants, veggies, and herbs to plant at home and grow yourself. Right now, all 4.5-inch Bonnie plants are on sale through May 18th. Head to the Menards Garden Center to get your garden growing and check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, progressives, and welcome to the May 15th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. The Credo mobile line, mobile and text line 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Catch me on Substack. Yeah, there's a lot of good Substack stuff that's going on these days. Catch all of our shows, of course, by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And that's where you can get the short version and the long versions of Choose Views. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath. Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Of course, check out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform. There's really some great things happening over there, as always. I say this, excuse me, guys, so many times, but a really good lineup of articles and Heartland Signal on X clips that you guys will want to check out. Everything from what's happening in Ohio, how Medicaid cuts will impact Heartland State, the states in the Heartland, and just ways for you guys, like as always, to pass on some good information to the folks that are out there in your progressive world. On today's show, our guest will be Wendy Singer, executive director of No Shame on You. Robert Emmons, lead organizer, One Aim. We'll talk a little bit about gun violence. And Ron Fierstein, who will be with us to discuss a really cool documentary that I thought that the team here thought would be good to chat about, that's taking place or airing next week on Kodak and Edwin Land. And so we're going to chat with him about that this morning. And hopefully you guys will appreciate that segment. I want to hear from you guys, as always. Our number, of course, our Credo mobile and text line is 773-763-9278. And that will give you guys the opportunity to give us a shout. But right now, what I want you guys to do, check this out, progressives.
So Senator Chris Murphy, who is quickly becoming my favorite senator, just said if there was one thing the American people should be focusing on right now, it is the Republicans' budget bill. Because Donald Trump can do a million horrible things, but what the Republican Congress have written down as their priorities gives the game away. If people don't know, the proposed Republican budget would devastate working families by defunding critical programs from healthcare to public education, including cutting almost $700 million from Medicare and Medicaid, $4.5 billion from K through 12 public education, $2.5 billion for clean water infrastructure, $26 billion from federal rental assistance programs, which to be clear will really harm our veterans, $721 million from USDA's rural programs, including the money allotted from the Biden administration to expand broadband to all Americans, and $315 million for grants in preschool development. And all of these cuts to programs are to pay for more tax cuts for the ultra-rich. This is the Republicans' real budget. These are their real priorities. Not farmers, not small businesses, not the young or the old, not education or veterans, but the rich getting richer for no reason other than we now live in a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours corruption vortex. So as little respect as I have for Donald Trump, we need to keep in mind that this nightmare we're living through isn't just all on him. Everything that is happening, from the abandonment of our legal right to due process to the tariffs destroying our economy, is because of the incompetence and greed of the Republican Party. The Republicans could stop any of this at any time. They are just choosing not to. At this point, they are actually sitting mute in congressional hearings. They're not debating. They're not explaining their decisions. They're not even trying to justify the lawless behavior of their own party. They are just sitting on their hands and voting the way they are told. So I need you to make sure that Donald isn't the only one watching them. I need you to make sure that he is not the only one they are scared of. I need you to call them, to show up at their offices and interrupt their social lives. I need them to get no peace until they start protecting ours. The The Republican budget is a slap in the face of every single American who isn't a billionaire or a giant corporation. It is a short-sighted tax giveaway that will ultimately cause civil unrest and mass poverty, which, to be clear, isn't great for anyone, including them. There are not a lot of customers when everyone in the country is poor or afraid. You think these people would know that, but they did choose a leader who bankrupted a casino, so maybe they don't really understand economics. At any rate, call Congress. Demand your representatives, particularly your Republican representatives, vote against this budget bill before we find our entire nation as Donald Trump's next bankruptcy.
And yeah, that's something we definitely don't need, is the the country to be Donald Trump's next bankruptcy. That's coming from, that clip comes from Politics Girl, Lee McGowan, who met at the DNC. Really strong progressive and really been leaning into, for a while, a number of issues. And she makes it plain that these budget items that are happening, these conversations that are happening, just are not in the best interest, obviously, of the country. But this is the thing that we've been saying for such a long time. It's not just Donald Trump. It is his administration that's causing so much havoc. Here's an example. The IRS criminal investigators in Chicago are being deputized, guys, as immigration enforcers under the Trump administration plan. Kristi Noem and her little tour. Oh, by the way, did anybody? I wasn't able to grab it quickly enough. Did anybody see the clip of Representative Benny Thompson? He was interviewed. Kristi Noem's at a hearing. Sorry about that, guys. And the clip is too good. It's only like 18 seconds long. But basically, it's him sort of appropriately chastising her for, he called it her wardrobe, photo ops and wardrobe change shows that she's been going on around the country. Thank you for taking the time. I think it goes like this, and I should have grabbed it. But I think it goes like this. Thank you for taking the time to sit with us while you're in a break from your photo ops and wardrobe change shows or something like that, or costume change shows. That's what it was. And I was like, whoa. But in that, the hard side of all this is, as Homeland Security Secretary, she doesn't know what she's doing. In any capacity. I really kind of looked her up the other day when Representative Eric Swalwell got after her about not answering his question about if the photo was doctored of Mr. Garcia's knuckles, that Trump tried to say that it was real, versus the fact that the photo had been photoshopped. And so, Henry, he was Representative Swalwell was asking her to answer the question, was this photo doctored? And she just kept going around and around, not answering. And he basically said, and this is what we continually have to have from Democrats, in session, in hearings, and the like, he basically said to her, Madam Secretary, I have 3 children. I think it's 7-year, 4-year, and 2-year, something like that. He said, and I have a very good BS detector. He used the full-scale word, Henry. He used a full-scale word right in that hearing. And what I'm hearing from you is just that. Could you please answer the question? It's a yes/no question. Do you? And so at some point, he had one of his staff members take the photo, the big, enlarged version of it, to walk it out to her hearing seat, because she was trying to pretend like she had never seen it, didn't know anything about it, blah, blah, blah. However, in terms of news that's impacting us by this administration and what's going on the negative side, they're looking at deputizing Chicago immigration officers, IRS investigators as immigration officers. A communication sent to the staff this week by Ramsey Covington, special agent in charge of the IRS Criminal Investigations Chicago field office, said that he was still, quote, working to get legal advice and clarification on the situation. That means he knows what they're trying to do is wrong. If he didn't, I believe, let me back up. I don't want to Guys, I at the pace that we run, we say things and we have to be respectful to what we're saying and try to have it right 100% of the time. I don't know what's going on in this man's mind, but it would tell me that if he's working to get legal advice and clarification, that he probably has a sense, Henry, that something isn't quite right, I should say, with them doing this. And if so, if it is, then they're making absolutely certain that not that the people who they would go after come after them, but that the actual IRS agents don't turn around and say that you put me in some predicament or harm's way by having to go out to, arrest and rally up people. But as many as a dozen Chicago-based agents were expected to be detailed to the Department of Homeland Security's local immigration efforts for up to 6 months. You know what? This goes back to what Lee was saying. The Republicans can stop all this. The Republicans in the House can slow this down, if nothing else. All right, guys, speaking of slowing down, we'll take a quick little break. The number from our Credo mobile and text line is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
It's Choose View with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose View. 773-763-9270 is, yes, our Credo mobile and text line. Credo Mobile, a progressive phone company that is better for all people and the planet. Visit credomobile.com. So some other stuff with Trump. And this is, I guess you could say, to the positive. Loses a battle. A big one, I guess you could say, in terms of how a judge has ruled that federal grants can't be stripped as a form of retaliation from the American Bar Association. So this is another story where a judge has stepped in and basically saying that the administration having stripped grants from the American Bar Association that helped to fund services to protect victims of domestic violence and sex violence, that was not allowed, and that they can't use that as a form of retaliation. Seems consistent with the rule of law. And going back to what Attorney General Letitia James said, and then we played this clip earlier in the week, the courts are in our favor. See, here's the thing with the courts. And this is my opinion. I'm not a judge. I'm not an attorney. I've read lots of law. But this is the thing that I think is critically important. The law is written, and it's there to look at and go, that's what it says right now. So changing the law requires more than just a off-the-rails president and a feckless Republican Party saying, nope, we're not going to do that. Because I understand the Justice Department is run by a bunch of yahoos that many will say, well, Richard, doesn't matter. They're still not going to follow the law. We don't know they're not going to follow the law in every circumstance. We know that there's evidence that they are pushing the envelope. It's like a child. They're all like children. We know this, Henry. We were children. and we did what we did to cut up and push mom and dad's or whoever was in charge's, temperament to see how much we could get away with. I mean, is that crazy? We all did that. And I think grown folks do the same thing. And when you put people, and then when people have power and money or one or the other, and then they come together, they're certainly going to push the envelope until you push back or pull them back. And that's why I think we can't, as much as, and I know there's those of you out there that are saying, yeah, but Richard, they don't give a dang, and I get that, but that doesn't mean that we should stop pushing. It doesn't mean that we should stop pulling. It doesn't mean that, again, Ms. James said it best. We're going to use the law, the rule of law, what's written in the law, in every single scenario that we can, and it would almost be reckless for us to not, until a judge says no. And so now what's happening in this space, and even, this Justice Roberts is, the rule of law is a jeopardy. Well, listen, dude, you tinkered with it. You walked away from the campfire. You knew that if you walked away from the campfire that there were things that could happen that could be really bad. So now you're running in going, and I'm not saying he started the fire, but I'm saying the fire was, I don't want to get in trouble with Billy Joel. And, but that fire was burning already, and you walked away from it when you had a chance to, douse it out, to put it out. And a couple of decisions. And Citizens United is one of them when we talk about campaign finance and where we are now today with the money that's been thrown in this current election, and others on both sides. Let's just call that as it is. But as it relates to this immunity thing, I mean, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, you and I, Henry, we've got nieces and nephews. You probably don't have as many as I do, but we've got younger folks than even you that would say that if you give a person that's already proven with evidence that they don't care as much about following the rules, and they're going to blow past the line until you pull them back, that they're going to do it. And that you've got young folks in your life that would look at that and go, why would you give that entity even more of an opportunity to do that? So, yes, the Justice Department, the Supreme Court are a little bit off or I should say certain members of the Supreme Court are a little bit off their rail. And the Justice Department, meaning the federal pieces of this, are not doing the work that they should be doing, is working for the people, not for Donald Trump. That still doesn't change the fact that these cases have to be brought. These pushbacks have to take place. That's all I'm saying. And yet another, and this is why I keep coming back to Attorney General James, and we probably will over and over, because we have to be reminded. Rachel Maddow said it when she was on Jimmy Kimmel, but the same thing, Stephen Colbert, about why we have to resist. A judge orders a release of the Georgetown scholar that the Trump administration was looking to deport because of his because of the fact that there was no evidence that that he was committing any acts that were against the U.S. government. And the First Amendment extends to non-citizens and doesn't distinguish between citizens and non-citizens, a part of this judge's ruling. So the courts are working in large measure to our favor. When I say our favor, I don't mean just progressive, favor, to the favor of the country. Because here's what a lot of, I think, the folks on the right don't really get about this. And this is, again, pulling from the age-old poem that they, eventually they came for me because there was nobody left. So if MAGA thinks that they're going to be immune or untouchable in this, and that they're not going to at some point, because if not at some point, they're going to not come from them. Yeah, and So the problem with that is too many people have allowed themselves to get fooled into thinking that they're not going to come for them. At some point, you've got to realize that you are equally vulnerable. And that's, I think, one of the biggest mistakes that can be made by anybody saying, well, I'm not going to do anything. I mean, it's going to let this kind of play itself out. No, we have to still fight. And I get that there's a disproportionate amount of leaning toward the right in terms of the numbers in the House of Representatives. I get that. But like Lee McGowan said, the Republicans in the House of Representatives are being very feckless, and they have an opportunity. It's not even an opportunity. They have a responsibility to do the work to make sure that the American people are protected from this carnage. And this House bill, this medical bill that's coming forward is going to be tragic, and it's not going to have a red or a blue, through line to people who voted for Trump. It's going to affect people that voted for Trump or not. And it's unfortunate that they don't see it. But, that's a price that, unfortunately, if they're willing to pay, it's going to be a very, very deep cut. And because we start with, we always start this conversation around the economics, what people voted for, and that people said that this is the reason why. And the second one is immigration. Well, the other part that we've got to keep in mind that's important to all Americans is health. And tampering with the system that is designed to help and be there for people when their health is on the line. That in my mind maybe should be even more important than the economics. I don't know. I don't want to set anybody's value system up, but it certainly has got to be one that's going to be high on the list, and it should be higher. It should be not just higher, but it should be something that everybody recognizes that everybody's impacted by it, because we all, are susceptible to any medical or health concern. We never know. So for them to be pulling money from that, and for the Republicans to get behind this kind of carnage that's coming, in addition to what's already here, just continues to show their fecklessness and their irresponsibility. I was thinking about this yesterday, later in the day, and looking at things for today's show. And with our upcoming guest, we may talk about a couple of how the federal budget is impacting their work. But gosh darn, I mean, how many people are going to? Where's the data going to be to show the number of people that are impacted by this kind of fecklessness from the Republicans as it relates to medical, both Medicare and Medicaid, and healthcare in general? People, if companies are laying off, and this is the part that, again, this is another part of this massive conversation. If companies are laying off or reducing staff or not hiring or closing in a community, then let's just say that there's 100 people that work for a business in a community, that business has to lay off 25% of its staff. It has so many domino effects. Obviously, immediately the impact on the people who lost their jobs, the impact of the people that are still working there to deal with the disappointment of those coworkers no longer being around, the added work that it's going to put on the people that are working there, the community that benefits from the money that's made by those 25 people that got laid off. And the list can go on, but those are just, 4 areas right there. And these are not any longer the indirect, but the direct impact of reckless use of the tariffs. And then we get into the other part, which is what kind of introduced my thinking on this, is the medical pieces of this. Most people's health insurance is paid for through their employer. So now we've got this, sort of a trifecta of problem, and the Republicans in the House of Representatives have a direct tool to impact that, but they don't care because they're more concerned about satisfying the billionaire friends and the wealthy companies that are tied to the Republican Party. Had to get that out this morning, guys. Thanks, Lee, for reminding us about calling Congress. Call Congress, y'all. But right now, we're going to take a quick break. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Imagine having all the money you need for retirement, all the income, every month, guaranteed. That's Secure Future Investor. Secure Future utilizes an indexed annuity tied to growth in the U.S. stock market, but without any risk of loss ever. That's right. No matter what happens in the market, your investment can never decline. Down years, you're insured against any losses. Boom years, your retirement account grows exponentially to increase your worth. Whether the market is up or down, Secure Future Investor can set you up with guaranteed money for life income. It's the difference between thinking you have enough money to retire and knowing you're getting that retirement check every single month for the rest of your life, no matter how long you live. Over 40 years old? Call now. 888-509-2228. 888-509-2228. Sponsored by GP Agency, Inc., Raleigh, North Carolina. Licensed in all states. Performance may vary. Consult with your financial professional before making an investment decision.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty showers and thunderstorms possible late today. Otherwise, a blend of clouds and sunshine develops, a high in the low 90s. Breezy winds out of the south increase around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms early on, decreasing clouds, a low near 62. Friday's chance for showers and storms late, high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 64.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be talking to Jess Herrera, staff member at Supermajority, media critics Jen Scholze and Brian Reins, and of course, filmmaker Greg Pallas, author and investigative journalist. Live, Local, and Progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. here on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk for 20 years. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by musician Sierra Soroka. And Liz Pancati will be with her as well, Managing Director of Policy and Advocacy at Groundwork Collaborative and former Labor Policy Director for the United States Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. That's going to be a great interview. And Kayla Ragona, board member of Seattle Indivisible. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Yep, there we go. We'll bring you some more in a minute. But this morning, we have one of our local leaders, local organizational leaders, that's really been making, I'm going to say, good trouble, as the late John Lewis would say, when it comes to making sure that our folks that are struggling with any sort of a mental health issue have a place to be, and a place to be cared for. And with us this morning is the executive director of No Shame on You, Wendy Singer. Good morning, Wendy, and welcome to Choose Views.
Thank you for having me.
Uh-oh. Are you there? Can you hear? We can't hear you, Wendy.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show, and thanks for being with us this morning. You are the executive director of No Shame on You, and I would love for you to take a moment and sort of introduce a little bit more about yourself. I know, but I want our listeners to hear from you, as well as tell us a little bit about the organization, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail about what you're doing here in the Chicagoland area and the greater community.
Awesome. So yes, I'm Wendy, Executive Director for No Shame on You, and we're a nonprofit based in Chicago that serves the greater Chicagoland area, and even with our virtual programming, we can expand our reach and impact to the whole country. And we're dedicated to eliminating stigma surrounding mental health challenges, so people who need the help will seek it, and family and friends will know how to support loved ones. And we achieve our mission through all kinds of different educational workshops surrounding mental health. We customize and tailor our workshops and presentations to all kinds of community sizes and groups and ages, schools, religious organizations, and more. We also create incredible free resources, including crisis guides and different handouts on different topics on a variety of mental health topics. And we also have blogs and podcasts that share stories of people with lived experience and mental health advocates, as research shows that sharing stories is one of the number one ways to reduce stigma. And I myself started about 3.5 years ago, and it was an accidental connection, but a very meaningful connection, where 10 years ago I met our amazing founder, Miriam Ament, who experienced some intense mental health struggles in her 20s and 30s, and she was hospitalized, and she felt that through that experience, many people in her circle weren't sure how to support her and handle her. So she was a visionary and decided to launch No Shame on You 10 years ago. And at the time, I was in a fellowship. I was a camp director for 18 years, and I was in a fellowship with her launching a camp, and she was launching No Shame on You, and I immediately fell in love with her and her mission. I thought she was a visionary, and we stayed connected through my work for years and personally. And fast forward to COVID, I myself and my sweet little family experienced a mental health crisis for one of my kids, and I felt so alone, and it was a scary time, and I ended up reaching out to her just to say, hey, can I volunteer? I want to, if you need a relatively level-headed mom who's been through stuff herself, I have my own generalized anxiety disorder and challenges in my family, then if you need a mentor who would talk to another parent who's going through something or just need something, I wanted to volunteer. And 3 weeks later, I didn't just start volunteering for No Shame on You. I started working for No Shame on You. And so out of something really awful came something that I'm so deeply, deeply passionate about. And that's just a little bit about the org and a little bit about me and how I got there.
Well, it's a fascinating, wonderful story, and it was meant to happen that you were able to have this relationship or this encounter with Miriam, and she is a legend in this space and has done so much work to bring light to the fact that all of us. It's 1 degree of separation, and not even separation. It's right next to. It's in the mirror. Let me say it this way: as a human being, not as a professional, but as one that's lived long enough to know this. It's in the mirror, and I think that we all would be a little bit better off with a little bit of time on the couch, as it's said, to talk to someone, and it may be a family member, it may be a professional, whatever the case may be, but it's good for the soul, and and I don't want to I don't want to minimize the importance of attention to people that have some clinical issues, that have diagnosed with a particular mental condition, but the concern is that, to your point, to the organization, is there's no shame in discussing it. There's no shame in talking about it. And you've spent a career. You've got the educational background and chops, and you've got the practical experience to see that talking about it, as simple as that may be, is nothing to be ashamed about. And the more that we do, the better that we all are when it comes to some of the mental challenges. And that's what you're seeing over these years, correct?
Absolutely. And one of the statistics I learned when I first started working for No Shame on You was shocking to me and ties right into what you were just saying. And that's 50% of people on this planet, of humans on this planet, will experience a mental health disorder at some point in their lifetime. And this was a Harvard medical research study. And what it meant to me is that, just as you said, everyone is affected, either yourself at some point or somebody you love, a parent, a child, a colleague, a neighbor, a friend, an acquaintance. We are all affected. And just talking about it, and it is one of the key ways, and being open about it leads to people feeling less shame, and hopefully that they'll get help.
Well, this and so, Wendy, this is such a large, important topic that it impacts us in a way that sometimes it sneaks up on us, and I'm sure that you probably see this because of the fact that people are shamed for talking about. Not even a mental condition that's diagnosed or not, but just talking about mental stress and fear and all these other concerns that any of us have. The fact that people don't have space to talk about it, it will sneak up on, and suddenly there's a big issue. You've got an event coming up this Sunday, I believe. It's called Our Turn to Talk. Share with us a little bit more information about this upcoming event.
Awesome. So one of the things we do at No Shame on You is we have this incredible teen leadership board, and teens from all across the Chicagoland area meet us on a monthly cohort system, learning about mental health topics and learning tools for destigmatization and leadership skills, all through a mental health lens. And each year they culminate with a teen-led and teen-driven program for the community, for teens and those who love them and serve them. And this year they planned an awesome program where we are screening a powerful documentary called Our Turn to Talk on Sunday, May 18th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Wilmette Theater at 1122 Central Avenue in Wilmette. And the documentary really travels to meet teens from across the United States who have experienced mental health struggles, and their backgrounds are all really interesting and different. Kids from urban areas, rural areas, Black and brown families, and anything you can imagine. The LGBTQ plus community are all highlighted, and they are brave enough. These kids are brave enough to share their stories and with the world, and it's really powerful. And following the documentary screening, we'll be having a panel discussion that the teens will be leading and facilitating. And we have three really wonderful panelists. We have Morgan, who's one of the teens, now young adults, who is featured in the documentary. Coming, she happens to be local to the Chicagoland area, so she'll be coming and talking about her story and what that felt like and what it meant to her to be an advocate in that way. And then we have another woman, Alana Margolis, who is a parent of a teen who has struggled, and now has, a little bit similar to me, has made it her life's work and works for Plena Mind Center in the Northern Burbs. And finally, we have a therapist, Kate Blaker, with Terra Wellness Center on the panel from that expert lens. And it's going to be an awesome, powerful discussion led by teens. And I hope people will think about joining us.
Well, we have a clip, a brief clip that we'd like to play, if you're okay with that. That's part of the documentary. Are you good with that, Wendy?
Of course.
All right, we're going to let that fly right now.
It's all about starting the conversation, and that's why I'm doing this podcast, Our Turn to Talk, to share real stories of teens like me. In this season, we'll hear from Morgan, a teen hockey player from Chicago who's facing off against stigma, on and off the ice.
You shouldn't be ashamed to talk about what's going on in your head, because it doesn't make you any less tough. It just makes you human.
Young Elder, a community activist from Baltimore, Maryland.
What we're experiencing right now is called community trauma.
Dylan, a high school football star from Glenbrook, Illinois.
You see kind of the guys that separate themselves with the mental side of the game versus the physical side of the game.
And River, a transgender teen living in North Carolina.
I always had pressure on me to be something that I wasn't.
I was really shocked that there's actual scientific research, that storytelling truly saves lives. You can literally help other people just by speaking out and being honest about what you've been through.
So, Wendy, right now in this crazy world that we live in, particularly here in the United States with all that's happening politically, and this is a political focused show with social issues and all the rest, one of the biggest things that people are probably, that I worry about right now is where there's economic pressure, there becomes mental pressure. And I worry right now for Americans who are going through some of the economic pressures that are going to be foisted upon them and have been and will be further, kind of going inward and not reaching out to community. One of the voices in the clip talked about a community, and that's what you've created and gotten behind. And I'm a big advocate of the importance of community and coming together and reaching as many people as possible. And this is what it seems as though No Shame on You has been trying to do is reach the community of folks who need to be reached, which is all of us, and let folks know that it's a safe place to be.
Yes, thank you. And we're going to keep on going and doing the best we can.
Well, you've been doing great stuff for such a long time, and that can't go without the highlight that it deserves. And we appreciate, I've always said that, or I've always believed, at least I don't know how much I've said it, that the people that do the work of caring for others are, the godsends that we all are blessed to have. And sometimes it's literally, we take that literally and look at the people that are working in the hospitals, that are working in the emergency rooms, that are working in facilities where care is literal. But oftentimes it's organizations, more often than we talk about, like No Shame on You, that are, you're doing the same thing, but in a different venue. And that is caring for people that may have the struggle of talking about what their mental challenges are and how they got them and what are some of the reasons that they can't get past them. But you're advocating just talking about them and being able to have a community where you can share those stories, or you can open up to people who have created a safe space, and you've been able to do such a wonderful job with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and thanks for lifting up our mission today.
And it's a national conversation. This is not just something you're here in Chicago, and it's a community outreach program that's here. But literally, this is voices just from the clip reflect on how kids all over the country, certainly, and adults as well, are impacted by this. I have a couple of quick questions as we wrap up. The biggest one, of course, is how folks can find you, how folks can reach you, how folks can get involved. I know that your organization has really expanded in recent years, but how can folks support and be more involved with the organization?
First, visit our website. It's www.noshameonyou, the letter U, not YOU.org. And you will see that we have a resource library on the right-hand side, free resources for the entire community to use and download. One of my favorites that I wanted to mention, since we are talking about teens, is a viral guide that has gone out called When Your Child is in Crisis, a guide for parents and caregivers, and it's had close to 4,000 reads and downloads since it's been published. It's free, and we just want it in the hands of any parent who needs it, or anyone who serves teens. We've gotten incredible feedbacks from schools and different people who serve them, coaches, etc. And we do have volunteers, so reach out to me. You can email me if you're interested, Wendy@noshameonyou.org. If you want to learn more about different volunteer opportunities, if you're interested in sharing your story on our blog or podcast, we're here and we're open to hear about it. And and follow us on social media.
That's right.
Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
All the socials.
And just liking it. Just liking it is a ripple effect of good, because someone might see our content that will be meaningful to them and might need it right at that moment.
Wendy, as we wrap up, what are some good words that you can send out? It's a tough topic. It's a tough subject. But what are some good vibe, good thoughts that you can put out to folks that might literally be listening and want to feel better about where they are in this space?
I guess, for me, this is something that helped me throughout my life. Life is not linear, and just keep riding the wave. What goes up comes down, and enjoy the ride and expect that it will be wavy. And life is not linear. Life is not linear, but we're all in it together, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're definitely not alone, with no shame on you.
And we got community to back that up. So, Wendy, thank you for being with us. Wendy Singer, Executive Director of No Shame on You. Thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks for helping us discuss a tough topic, but one that we as a community can work together to make better. Thanks for being with us, Wendy.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
I will. You too. Bye now. All right, guys, there it is. I mean, the tough stuff is the stuff that we got to talk about, and that we have to deal with right now in this crazy environment that we're in politically. This is one of these social issues, mental health, and the federal government is showing its inability or unwillingness to, is maybe a better word, to protect that area of care. And this is where Medicare, Medicaid, healthcare in general is critically important. So we can't have federal government, the federal government, putting additional weight on the states by taking away funding that's going to impact the mental health and stability. Again, as I said earlier, healthcare is not a blue, red, or in the middle item. It affects every single one of us. Just like Wendy said, in terms of it being a mental health, particularly being a no shame category. So let's do our part here and reaching out to organizations like No Shame on You and Wendy Singer to provide them whatever support and help that you can, even if it's just volunteering. And this is, again, one of those moments where I say the local issues are national issues, because this is a part of this is why we as a community have to be looking out for each other. So let's take a little bit of a break. The number is 773-763-9278. And yes, that is our Credo mobile and text line. We'll be right back. Hey Progressives, this is Richard Chu, host of Chu's Views here on WCPT AM 820, 6 to 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. We have some real challenges in front of us as a country. Since the beginning of this show, I have always felt compelled to bring you the best that I've got. Now, there's always a why to doing whatever we do. So, as we go forward and face these challenges, know this: you listeners are my why, because I want to make sure I do everything I can to provide a safe, open, forward-moving space that allows you to call, email, text, or just listen to a guy that wants to help you bring out your own championship qualities to truly make this place better for us all. Lofty goal, idealistic, maybe so. But that's my why, and I look forward to bringing you the best that I've got. This is Richard Chu. Stay tuned.
You're listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
You're listening to Chu's View with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is our Credo mobile and text line, a Progressive phone company that is better for all people in the planet. Visit credomobile.com. And yeah, by the way, our anniversary page, it's still happening. Be sure to visit WCPT's 20th anniversary page at heartlandsignal.com/anniversary. There you'll find a playlist that includes our full 4.5-hour May 3rd broadcast and all of our different conversations that we had that day with special guests, including Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, Joe Wine-Banks, as well as Tom Hartman. Plus, you'll see the photos covering 20 years of WCPT right up on our May 3rd shindig at Max and Benny's. So check it out. So people are asking who's going to be the voice, the leader, the next in terms of the Democratic Party. And obviously there's a number of voices that are out there. And we've been trying to keep you guys plugged into who they are, what they're saying, and what they think are some of the tools that we have in our toolkit to win and how we want to proceed down this path. Henry and I put together a clip from the former Secretary Pete Buttigieg on Jen Psaki talking about how Democrats can reshape, readjust, learn, and move in the direction of winning not just the presidency, but other offices along the way. So Henry and I have got that clip for you now.
We have got to make sure that our opposition and everything that we're against, and obviously there is a lot to be passionately against right now, but it has to travel with a clearer picture of what we are for. Because there are a lot of voters who, for whatever reason, and Democrats might be shocked by this, but for whatever reason, did not find any of the things they've seen so far about Donald Trump to be disqualifying. And what that means is there's something else that, it doesn't mean they necessarily loved him, but they need to see something more. This is not a question of accommodating things that we don't agree with or watering down or changing our values. It is a question of making very clear to everybody how your everyday life is different if we're in charge compared to if they're in charge. What your life could be like if wages went up the way that we propose that they be raised. What we would do with the money if we successfully stopped the tax cuts for the wealthy that are at the core of Donald Trump's economic agenda. What we think could happen in a country where we had paid family leave and some of the unfinished business of fixing our health care system. It's not just a matter of preserving the Affordable Care Act, as important as that is. It's going the next step to make sure everybody can get and afford health care. All of these things that need to happen, that needs to be as clear a picture as our response to the authoritarian tendencies of this administration. Because the truth is, proto-authoritarian governments don't just come out of nowhere. We would not be in this situation if the government, the economy, and the politics of our country were healthy. They've been unhealthy for a long time. I think everybody knows that. And if my party seems like it's calling for a return to the status quo from before, that will be both substantively wrong and politically it will fail.
And the reason that it will fail is because I believe it says to people, it says that people that are elected didn't listen. Now, one of the notes that I made when we put this together earlier is Vice President Harris did speak to those items. She spoke to all the things that Donald Trump would represent and would happen. Hillary Clinton, I've said this many times here and in other places, that Hillary Clinton, I think it was the second debate, she laundry listed, this is what's going to happen if Donald Trump is elected. And she was right, unfortunately. And Vice President Harris said the same thing, or the similar strategy. Here's what's going to happen. She broke it down. And the problem that so many people don't want to admit, the reality that so many people don't want to admit or not even acknowledge, is that not only was she right and did tell people, is that she was sitting in the White House as vice president and knew the things that were coming because of what they were working so hard to not let happen, and then to also have corrected during these 4 years. So this is where I believe that I appreciate what Pete Buttigieg is saying, and we have to be willing to stay on point with the message that we've had for a long time, which is that this is what's going to happen with them in office, and it's been proven now. But we do have to contrast that. It can't just be that the Republicans are stinky, which is true. It has to be the Republicans are stinky, and here's what it's going to be like to have the nice bed of nice smelling flowers by having us in office, and why we're going to do X with this. Like he said, when we make changes in the tax laws, what we're going to do with those things. When we make changes in these parts of the budget, how that's going to directly impact you. I think the messaging part of that will be so much stronger. And I've said this so many times over the past few years. Our message has to be, here's why what we're doing is going to impact you. Here's how it's going to impact you. People like to hear that. Here's the why. Here's the how. And that is something that, believe it or not, is easy to then share with another person. Because someone says if they lower taxes, okay, what does that mean? Here's how it's going to help you. if we raise wages, okay, here's how that's going to help you. Make it plain, make it simple, make it direct, and like, you know, almost like a cheat sheet of the reasons why we're going to be better in office than they have been in office. And I think that Secretary Pete has been, I still call him that, has been very good in that space. So we give him his props there. But I did want to bring you guys that clip and chat a little bit about it. We're going to take a quick break, top of the hour. And when we come back, we'll be talking with our next guest, Robert Emmons, who is with the One Aim organization. You guys will want to hear this interview. 773-763-9278. Yes, it's the Credo mobile and text line. We'll be right back.
Do you disregard people's personal space? Sitting next to people in public, even if there are tons of open seats? Do people ask, how do you sleep at night? Then you should get a mattress from Mattress Firm. They can help anyone sleep. There's still time. Come to Mattress Firm's Memorial Day sale and get a queen mattress and adjustable base for just $499.99. Get matched at Mattress Firm. Sleep at night. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
Active Liver is the easy way to get a daily detox and to keep you healthy and feeling your best. Find Active Liver at your local CVS or online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. AP correspondent Karen Shamas reports on Israeli airstrikes in a southern Gaza city that's killed 54 Palestinians overnight.
An AP cameraman counted 10 Israeli airstrikes on the city overnight and saw numerous bodies taken to the morgue. It was the second heavy night of bombing after Israeli airstrikes on northern and southern Gaza overnight Wednesday killed at least 70 people, including almost 24 children. An Israeli strike on the northern town of Jabalia was captured on camera on Thursday. Residents and bystanders were seen scrambling for safety as a big plume of smoke rose into the air. The strikes come as President Donald Trump visits the Middle East, with many hoping his visit could usher in a ceasefire deal or renewal of humanitarian aid into Gaza. An Israeli blockade of aid into the territory is now in its third month. I'm Karen Shamas.
Meanwhile, delegations from Ukraine and Russia traveled to Turkey Thursday for peace talks in the capital of Ankara. While President Vladimir Putin was absent, the Russian delegation arrived in Istanbul. It wasn't clear whether the two sides would meet for their first such talks since March 2022. President Trump thanked U.S. troops at the Al Udeid military base in Qatar on Thursday and discussed his Mideast trip so far. He then spoke about America's military power.
As president, my priority is to end conflicts, not start them, but I will never hesitate to wield American power if it's necessary to defend the United States of America or our partners.
Trump is now headed to Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates. Voters in Poland will cast their ballots Sunday in a presidential election. The country will choose a successor to conservative incumbent Andrzej Duda. There are a total of 13 candidates, and a runoff is expected on June 1st. Protesters were ushered out of Missouri's state senate after it approved a referendum on abortion rights. It would ban most abortions with exceptions for rape and incest, and would repeal an abortion rights amendment that voters approved 6 months ago. This is AP News. Sean Diddy Combs' ex-girlfriend gets cross-examined today at a sex trafficking trial.
Cassie is back on the witness stand today for the start of cross-examination by Sean Diddy Combs' attorneys. She spent 2 days testifying as the government star witness in the sex trafficking case against the hip-hop mogul. The defense plans to highlight infidelity as the driving force behind their explosive relationship. Jurors already have seen a video of Combs kicking and dragging her in a hotel hallway and have pictures of cuts and bruises she got. They've also seen photos of sexually driven freak-offs she says Diddy forced her to do hundreds of times. Combs' lawyers have said her civil suit, settled for $20 million, was reason for her to lie, but she says she's told the truth about the nearly 11-year relationship. She says therapy for drugs and trauma helped her recover after contemplating suicide.
I'm
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty showers and thunderstorms possible late today. Otherwise, a blend of clouds and sunshine develops, a high in the low 90s. Breezy winds out of the south increase around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms early on, decreasing clouds, a low near 62. Friday's chance for showers and storms late, high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 64.
You've always wanted to drive a Porsche. What are you waiting for? Find your new Porsche at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our selection of pre-tariff cars ready for immediate delivery, like the 2025 Porsche Cayenne. And right now, lease the 2025 Macan Electric for only $999 a month for 39 months. Shop electric Porsche models and more by visiting the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. $8,999 to its signing. Excludes tax, title, license, and doc fee. No security deposit required. Expires 6/2/25.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, progressives, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. That's our Credo Mobile text mobile phone and text line. Credo Mobile phone, a progressive phone company that is better for all people and the planet. Visit credomobile.com. Also, guys, go to our voicemail line as WCPT celebrates 20 years on the air. We want to hear from you and your WCPT story. Call 773-467-8202 today and leave a voicemail. We'll be playing some of the messages on the air. That number again is 773-467. Got to get that right. 8202. You can also leave a comment there about today's show or whatever happens to be floating around, running around in your brain. We have another great guest with us this morning that's been with us before and leads an organization that's critically important to a local issue in many conversations, but it's also really, frankly, a national issue. And that would be Robert Emmons, who's with us as one of the lead voices and founders with the organization One Aim Illinois. And good morning, Robert. Welcome back to Choose Views. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us again. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing really well, and I have to make one quick adjustment to your introduction. So I'm the organizing consultant with One Aim. Yeah, organizing consultant with One Aim. Our organization is being led by our executive director, Yolanda Androza, a black woman based in Chicago.
Right, she's also been with us as well. When I was looking at my notes, I was like, wait a minute, he's not the founder, he's one of the lead organizers.
I love the introduction, but I was going to let you just carry it on. Like, yeah, founder sounds nice.
Wait, and Yolanda and I had a great segment when she was on before. I don't want her, sneaking up on me and going, hey, Chu.
Exactly. She has a tough job, so I'll leave that to her.
Right. The last thing we need is to have a strong woman coming after us for not giving her.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for being with us this morning, Robert. You have been such a champion in this space, and you've been a nonprofit champion and worked with so many groups, and going back to when President Obama was in office and still being involved with the Obama Foundation's local lunchbox, protecting Illinois communities and all that. You've just been a stellar star in that space. But a lot of people don't know enough about you. So take a moment just to kind of reintroduce yourself to our audience. You're a little bit about your background and really what you are doing right now as one of the lead organizers with One Aim.
Yeah. So my name is Robert Emmons Jr. I'm an organizer and consultant here in the Chicagoland area. I work with a bunch of different organizations developing programming like the Obama Foundation's Local Lunchbox Initiative. Also worked in, again, organizing space with the Protect Illinois Communities Act. We helped get an assault weapons ban here in Illinois a few years ago, helping to lead that charge. Work with organizations like One Goal Graduation, which is a college access and persistence organization. Really, all of my work has to do with ending gun violence wherever it rears its ugly head, whether that be in the education space, the food security space, helping to reform the healthcare inadequacies and mental health care inadequacies. That's really what I've been up to over the last 12 years, helping to organize our communities to solve some of our most pressing issues. as the organizing consultant with Wendy in Illinois, it's my job to help lead Illinois' largest coalition of gun violence prevention and community and violence intervention organizations. Again, all of our organizations that are part of our 225 member coalition are all dedicated towards ending gun violence. So it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to do this work, and I can't wait to see a day in which we no longer have to do this work because gun violence is solved.
The number, and thank you for that, Robert, first of all, and I love how you put the emphasis on Junior. You want to make sure that Pops gets his credibility as well.
Exactly. I'm all about making sure everybody gets credit this morning.
Yes, I can tell. I can tell. You're keeping us both on the rails. Listen, man, there's so many words that have been used to describe it. The one that popped into my head at that moment was epidemic, and it's that, and it's so many others. But there's folks like you who are leaning in and drawing attention. You said 220. Let me make sure I heard that correctly. 225 partnering organizations. Did I hear that right?
Exactly. 225 partner organizations across Illinois, ranging from large organizations like Brady United, which is leading the charge nationally to help end gun violence, from smaller organizations that are local, like Live Free. So it's a wide range, diverse group of organizations with all one charge to do it different ways, but all one charge to help make our communities that much safer.
And what the size of that, or that number of 225, are they publicly funded? Are they self-funded? How do they, sustain themselves?
Yeah, most are privately funded through philanthropy. Some are getting government grants. But as we've seen across the country with this new administration, I'll keep it C3. With our current administration, the Trump administration, we're seeing a pullback on funding to community violence intervention programs that have been proven to make our communities safer. But all our organizations, again, they're funded. Most of them are funded privately. Some are getting public funds. But as we see rollbacks, it's becoming more and more dire that these organizations rely on private philanthropy.
How do we, Illinois, Chicago, and the greater state of Illinois is such an integral part to this conversation on a national level. And it's not just because, the current administration and the previous version of this current administration, or we could say 1.0, and other political voices and media have just thrown so much garbage at the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois. But why is it that we're so integral in this conversation and can be so impactful when it comes to addressing and trying to reduce gun violence?
Yeah, Illinois has been a model for the nation. Honestly, I talked a little bit earlier about my work helping to organize with the Protect Illinois Communities Act, which helped get an assault weapons ban here in Illinois. We are only the 13th state to do so. And as we see across the country, it's harder to get federal policies like that passed. But if we continue to do it on the local level, like what Illinois did, it serves as a model for the rest of the country to also ban assault weapons. And that came out of what we saw in Highland Park, that mass shooting on July 4th in Highland Park. Representative Bob Morgan proposed the Protect Illinois Communities Act to ban assault weapons to help save lives. So Illinois has always been a model for gun violence prevention, and we will continue to be. I think it's also important to mention that lots and lots of illegally trafficked guns come to Illinois from our neighboring states that have super relaxed gun laws. So we have to continue pushing here in Illinois so that the nation can catch up, so that we can stop getting these illegal guns in Chicago and across the state of Illinois. And it's coming from states like Wisconsin and Indiana, which have incredibly lax gun laws.
And Missouri as well. I mean, in terms of downstate, yeah. That's oftentimes because we're up here in Chicago, or let's put it that way, we're in the northern part of the state. Oftentimes the conversation is Chicago's gun violence and the impact of Wisconsin and Indiana. However, Missouri has had an incredible amount of impact on that because of their lax gun laws. I don't want to say lacking, but lax gun laws in relationship to the state that's right across the border.
Exactly.
Talk about, let's broaden this a little bit. Let's talk about the impact of the 13 states that do have the assault weapons ban in place. What statistics or data do you have that's showing a reduction in not just assault weapon violence, gun violence, but also when it gets into other forms of gun violence.
Yeah, and that goes into, I think it's also important to mention the work that our community violence intervention space is doing to help end gun violence on a local level. As we've seen just in Chicago last April 8th, in terms of homicides, it was the lowest amounts of homicides since 1962. So it's proof that the CVI work that was being funded under the Biden administration and currently still working, it's proof that these organizations, these movements, these community intervention folks are doing the work to end gun violence. We've seen how when they're well funded, they truly, truly make a difference. That and just what the community is doing to make a difference.
So are you finding in your work here in Chicago, the state of Illinois, that the national conversation? Let me ask the question differently. What are you hearing now? We're here local. You're part of a national conversation, but what are you hearing from those other states, the ones that don't have this type of legislation in place? Do they lean automatically or go right to First Amendment? Do they go to something else? What's a conversation like that when you're talking with people that are opposed to having your type of an organization and your type of work in place?
So around the conversation, you're absolutely right. They go to the Constitution, the right to bear arms. But it's important to mention that with that right comes a great responsibility. As Spider-Man movies would suggest, it comes with a great amount of responsibility. We have a responsibility to keep our community safe, regardless of you're a Republican or Democrat. So, yes, we have the right to bear arms, but we also have a tremendous responsibility to make sure our young people are safe. There's this old African greeting. Instead of saying hello, they ask, how are the children? In America, the children aren't doing well, as we see 54% of gun owners don't lock their guns securely, and every year 350 children under the age of 18 unintentionally shoot themselves or others. So what we're hearing nationally amongst the pro-2A groups and the gun advocates is they need their guns to keep themselves safe. Well, it's not keeping them safe. If guns kept us safe, then America would be the safest country on the planet Earth. But yet it's the exact opposite. And so guns don't keep us safe. But that's what we're hearing across the country, that they need their guns to keep themselves safe. They need their guns to keep their community safe, which statistically speaking is just false.
Well, yeah, if we, Robert, if that were true, we wouldn't need our military. Well, I know our military is for other things, but that's just a little bit of my sarcasm when it comes to the.
No, you're absolutely right.
The comparative. If we were that safe, but to that end, let me come back to something that you said about the folks who identify with the right to bear arms, part of the Second Amendment. I've been asked this question by a number of people over the years. So how do we change it? It's an interpretation, frankly, more than it is an actual a real writing of the law or the implementation of the law. Is there a way to change it, or are we stuck with it and we just have to create these other, sort of state laws, like the 13 state that have the assault ban weapon? Is there a mechanism, a way, other than changing leadership? I'm curious. What are you seeing that's a change opportunity?
Yeah, so I do believe it's a right to bear arms within our Constitution. When that law was created, the average trained soldier can shoot once per minute. Now, an armed gunman with an assault weapon can go into a school and gun down an entire classroom with a matter of seconds. So the law, in terms of interpretation, needs to be revamped in this country. And we're seeing that across the board as we pass legislation in states like Illinois, as we're working right now with One Aim Illinois to pass the Safe at Home bill, which strengthens protections and security of guns to make it less likely for someone at risk, a young person, someone that wants to harm others, make it more difficult for them to ascertain a firearm. That's what this is all about. So I think both communities, both the pro-gun and the pro-gun violence prevention advocates, need to come together and say, look, we have the same goal. even though they're a little bit, our logic is a little different. We have the same goal, and that's to keep our community safe, to keep our family safe. And to do so, we have to pass legislation that make it less likely. You're less likely to need your gun if our communities are safer. If lost and stolen guns don't end up in the wrong hands. And that's what we need to do on the state level, is continue passing legislation that will make our community safer. We would get so much further if we ended up working together versus working apart in terms of the interpretation of the Second Amendment.
Yeah. We're speaking with Robert Emmons, one of the lead organizers of One AIM and Illinois, One AIM Illinois. Robert, what is your observation or your thoughts about how the media, here you are on a morning radio show talking about gun violence prevention and an incredibly important part of this conversation in our country. But what is your impression, your thought, your feeling about how the role of the media when it comes to this conversation?
You mentioned it. Gun violence is absolutely an epidemic, and you can track it just like you can track a disease, especially in communities and cities like Chicago, where we see gun violence in one area, and then the next day we see the same level of gun violence in the next area due to the retaliation episodes that are occurring here across Chicago. As we saw with the pandemic back in 2020, we had legislators hopping on camera every single day reporting the lives that we've lost due to COVID. And we saw the level of urgency the federal government put on ending that pandemic, which was incredibly crucial to helping save lives. And the media responded because of how urgent everything was. The media needs to also address gun violence in the exact same way. We need to continue talking about the lives that we've lost, because these aren't just data points. These are lives lost, mothers and fathers permanently in pain because of the lives that we've lost, that are having to turn their pain into purpose because of the lives that we lost. The media absolutely needs to continue talking about this. The media also has a responsibility to talk about the solutions to gun violence that we see across the state of Illinois. There are lots of organizations that are doing great work to curb gun violence within their own individual communities, taking gun violence homicides from dozens to none. That's what we're seeing across Illinois with organizations that are doing the work. The media needs to also continue talking about those solutions, so not just the problem, but those solutions.
Right, and that's why I wanted to get your opinion on that. You've had and you are going to have some really great events talking about this. Back in April, you had a virtual meeting, I believe, that spoke to this, and then next week on Tuesday, you've got an advocacy day in Springfield. Tell us a little bit about the success of the event from April 7th, and your forward thinking with regard to what's happening next Tuesday in Springfield.
Right. So One AIM Illinois, we have what's called coalition meetings once a month, which we bring our entire coalition together to talk about specific issues, lots of times based off of what's going on that particular month. So we've had representatives like Congresswoman Robin Kelly come on, talk about what she's doing to help protect community violence intervention across the country. We have local elected officials like Nabila Syed, Alderman Ronnie Mosley, tons of leaders in the space come onto our calls to inform our coalition what we can continue to do to end gun violence. On May 20th, 2025, our coalition is bringing hundreds of people down to Springfield to advocate for the Safe at Home bill, the Homicide Data Transparency bill, the Homicide Victims Families Rights Act, as well as pushing our federal government to continue funding TBI work. So we're headed down there, bringing advocates and organizers to demand that the state of Illinois does what it needs to do to pass these life-saving bills, again, like Safe at Home, like the Homicide Data Transparency Act, like the Homicide Family Victims Rights Act, and again, fully funding the CVI work.
So I know this that the state legislators are going to be out of session and back in session. So it would be great to have you back on sometime in June to talk about the success or the outcome of next Tuesday's event down in Springfield and your trip down there. So I'm in advance asking you, hint, that you'll come back and chat with us about that. I presume you will. Is that a yes or a no?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Great. Robert, do us all a favor, do our listeners a favor, and let them know how they can get involved, if they can, how they can follow you. Most definitely, I know they can, the organization, and maybe you specifically in the work that you're doing, because this is a community. The solution, part of it is having the community be involved in the conversation, as well as the organizers like you and the elected officials on a state and a federal level. So let folks know how they can get plugged in.
Absolutely. Go to oneaimil.org. That's ONEAIMIL.org. There you can follow One Aim Illinois, subscribe to our newsletter. You can check out our events page to see what we're up to throughout the month. To follow me directly, you can follow me on Instagram at R_Emmons. That's R_EMMONS. I post lots of things about gun violence prevention and ways in which you can get involved with not just One Aim, but other organizations doing a phenomenal work to curb gun violence in the state of Illinois and across the country.
Fantastic. Robert Emmons, not the founder, but one of the lead organizers of One Aim Illinois, has been with us this morning. And first and foremost, I'll say thank you for being with us, but also, and maybe more importantly, for the hard work that you are doing and that the folks that are part of the organization have been leaning into. So, Robert, thank you for being with us this morning. We will have you back in June after session's back, and we can talk about the outcome from next Tuesday's event. Sound good?
Sound great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Be well. Stay safe, brother. We appreciate you. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, this is today is Community Organization Day and local, what's happening with organizations that are dealing with things that affect us all. Mental health. I wanted to get into talking with him about the mental health aspects of where we are with gun violence and all that. But, you know, with the short amount of time we had, I wanted to focus on some of those other top line issues. And, you know, part of, I'm gonna say this as it ties to our national politics, Henry. When we had Wendy on, she said something that I don't want to have you guys think I missed. Acknowledgement, recognition of an issue is critically important in resolving it. That's true when it comes to mental health. We all know that, and Wendy said it best. Robert said it as well, acknowledging that we have this issue when it comes to gun violence as a problem in America. And the same is true with our most recent elections, is that we do have to acknowledge the truth of things that happened. And I say that in connection to my 4 legs of the stool: racism, sexism, Christian nationalism, and privilege. I guess I'm kind of dogged about that. Acknowledging that we have the issues is a first step to correcting them and having the ability to move forward successfully. And both of our guests have talked about the importance of that. And so I think in the greater conversation about where we are as a country, people have got to acknowledge that that's how we got to where we are, and certainly in this most recent election. And if we go back a couple, 3, 4, 5 elections, we could put that litmus test to the conversation. That being said, I know that a lot of people there's a lot of people still kind of floating around, kind of paddling their dinghy in a circle because they can't get themselves to say these are the things that have caused these problems in our society. These are things that we keep walking away from and not addressing, whether it be a psychological concern like Wendy talked about, or gun violence, as Robert said, and then, of course, in our national discourse around politics. So let's acknowledge these things, guys. It allows us to strengthen our community when we can say this has happened, this is why we got here, how we got here. Let's not be afraid to tackle those issues. We're going to take a quick break. We'll grab maybe a call when we come back. The number is 773-763-9278. This is the Credo mobile phone and text line. We'll be right back.
Getting the kids to practice on time. Remembering if it's your day to bring snacks. Making it to the game with a clean jersey. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like whether your kid is going to run toward first or third base. That's simple human sense.
In Will and DuPage County, contact Paul Fazio at Fazio Insurance, 815-727-2611, or FazioInsurance.com.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting.
Relationships between men and women are often a challenge. Dr. John Gray, the author of
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, says differences in hormones explain why sometimes men aren't listening at the end of the day when women need to talk.
If she can talk about what's going on inside of her with someone who cares, that stimulates a hormone called oxytocin, and oxytocin lowers her stress level. And talking about things is not going to be a man's first instinct because it would produce oxytocin, and oxytocin can actually raise a man's stress level and also make him tired and sleepy. So, she's wanting him to talk at a time when he needs to lower his stress. It doesn't really suit him at that moment, but it does suit her. The compromise is actually men need to relax and listen. That's why men like to watch TV, listening to the news. So he can relax while listening to her talk, and she can talk to lower her stress.
With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty showers and thunderstorms possible late today. Otherwise, a blend of clouds and sunshine develops, a high in the low 90s. Breezy winds out of the south increase around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Then for tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms early on, decreasing clouds, a low near 62. Friday's chance for showers and storms late, high around 88. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 68.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Okay, we've got a really interesting segment that we're going to bring to you shortly, but first I want you guys to hear this little intro clip.
It's one of the most instantly recognizable brands ever.
I can't imagine a world without the Polaroid.
It was truly revolutionary in the real sense of the word.
A camera which you would use as often as your pencil or your eyeglasses.
This camera made photography accessible and portable. That is groundbreaking.
If we look at early photography, we had heavy equipment.
You shot your film, put it in an envelope, and you mailed it off to be processed.
The holy grail is to press the button, the camera does the rest.
Photography will never again be the same after today.
When Edwin Land started showing this camera, everybody went wild.
Everyone is bitten by this desire to take pictures.
Every significant invention must come to a world that is not prepared for it.
Wow, we've got a really cool story and based on a documentary that's coming up next week. Mr. Polaroid, American Experience. Welcome to the show. One of the folks that's got their hand on the lever of what's happening with this wonderful story is Ron Fierstein. Ron, good morning and welcome to Choose Views. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, Richard. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, in this crazy political, social, economic world that we're in right now, there's always a great American story about how we've gotten to where we are, good, bad, and in the middle. But yet this is this upcoming documentary next Monday, Mr. Polaroid, An American Experience, is talking about the inventor Edwin Land and the introduction of the Polaroid camera. Which, as we all know, instant photographs were, quite a revolution post-World War II and forward. But I found it really compelling to have a conversation around this because of the fact that we've got this wonderful company, or certainly a company that's impacted so many people throughout the country, throughout the world. Tell us a little bit about your involvement and your participation in this documentary, and a little bit about your thoughts in terms of the patent war that went on.
Well, Edwin Land is one of the great American inventors and technology entrepreneurs that no one has ever heard of, or very few people have ever heard of. And he had a profound impact on our lives. People don't realize that Edwin Land invented the thin sheet plastic polarizer when he was 19 years old back in the 20s. This was something that could take the bright light, the glare out of bright light. And it was a quest that physicists had been chasing for hundreds of years. No one could figure out how to do it or how to adapt the qualities of big rock crystals, which they knew could polarize light and take the glare out. But no one could figure out a practical material. Well, he figured it out when he was 19 years old, dropped out of Harvard, and started a company which became Polaroid, based upon that product. So your sunglasses that you wear today, it's the same material that he invented 100 years ago. It was used for a lot of different things, from the sunglasses to camera filters and so on and so forth. And he built a company based on that. During World War II, he produced all kinds of special products for the war effort. But when the war was winding down, he knew that he needed another challenge for this company he had created and all the talent he had amassed at that company. Because his big aim with that polarizer was to sell it to Detroit for automobiles to take the glare out of headlights. But he was never successful at doing that. Detroit just never really wanted to go to the expense of incorporating that technology.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. Sorry about that, Ron. What a lot of people don't know, and this is what's so crazy cool about history, and I'm always looking at the dotted lines of where we are when it comes to information and what we talk about. This is part of our history as a country, and as it relates to World War II, as you were talking about, I mean, he developed or was part of the conversation around the Project Gentrix, is that what it was called? And the U-2. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, when World War II was about to start, there was a fellow named Vannevar Bush, who was the head of MIT at the time. He went to Franklin Roosevelt and said, war is coming, even though the public stance was that we were staying out of the war at that time. But most people thought it was inevitable that we would get involved. And Vannevar Bush went to Franklin Roosevelt and said, listen, let's not make the same mistake we made in World War I, which was the failure to tap into America's technological prowess to help the war effort. And Roosevelt agreed this was a great idea and put Bush in charge of creating a team of scientists, both from academics and from industry, to help in the war effort. Well, Land, even though he was really in his 20s or just his early 30s at that point, was drafted into this team, and he started to make all this material. Well, from that, his talent and his genius was recognized, and he was sort of sucked into the intelligence world. And from that point on, all the way through President Ford, Land was one of the most important scientific advisors to the CIA. Some of his early work was the U-2 spy plane. He advised Dwight Eisenhower on how to deal with the Russian threat around the Sputnik space satellite. Later on, he was involved in the technology that was used in America's space satellites, and so on and so forth. And it really was sort of a secret part to his life. It was almost like Clark Kent and Superman, in the sense that he had a secret life working for the CIA, doing all kinds of important things for America. But on the other hand, he was Barnum and Bailey. He was a big showman when he came to introducing the brilliant products that Polaroid was producing.
It's so... Again, I say this again, Ron, and you in your own way are somewhat of a historian in the work that you've done and the following the genius of Edwin Land, the Land camera. I mean, remember, you and I are both chronologically old enough to remember the commercials back in the 70s, the Polaroid Land camera. And that's always stayed with my head as part of our sort of marketing history and messaging history about different products that we have used. A lot of what is happening today with technology is based on so much of what Edwin Land professed back in the 50s and 60s, and it's carried us forward and been kind of that foundational platform when it comes to digital photography. Talk a little bit about sort of the integration that's taken place in that space.
Well, the interesting thing that you mentioned is most people have heard Polaroid Land camera, Polaroid Land film. The name Land was always there. But I have to admit, until I got involved, I was a young lawyer on the team of lawyers that represented Polaroid in the legendary and really important patent lawsuit against Kodak. And that's a lot of what my book, Triumph of Genius, is about. But until I got involved in that, I always thought the word land referred to the ground, not to a person.
Everybody did, Ron. I mean, come on, man. We all thought that.
Exactly. It's very interesting. When I did my book tour, I would start my presentation with a little who's this? And I would give out some facts about this person had more patents, was second to Thomas Edison in the number of patents that they had, and this person made beautiful products. He cared about the aesthetics of the products and legendary products and built a great technology company and everything else. And I asked people, well, who is this? And everybody would say, well, that's Steve Jobs, of course. And I would say, no, that was Edwin Land. Steve Jobs idolized Edwin Land. Steve Jobs modeled Apple after Polaroid and his career a lot after Edwin Land. And so it's really interesting, the fact, one of the motivations I had for writing the book was to bring this man to the attention of more people, because he was one of the great Americans that, as I said earlier, no one has ever heard of.
It's so fascinating, and I put this in the context of history, American history, frankly, world history when we really get down to it. And being that we talk mostly politics and social issues and economic issues here on this show, there's always a through line and there's always a dotted line to something that's taken place in history that impacts where we are today. And we touched on that a little bit with regard to the counsel that he provided to the CIA and involvement with some of the security issues during various wars that have taken place. But what's been your American experience when it comes to this story, this conversation? How has it impacted you, maybe directly or even indirectly?
Well, as I said, I was a young lawyer on the team of lawyers that represented Polaroid, and over the course of that litigation, I actually got to work with Land directly. I was sort of assigned in the early days to search his files and his office for relevant documents during discovery, and then by the time it was ready for trial, I actually wrote the outline for his testimony. He was our first witness and our star witness in this major battle against Kodak. That story is another whole really almost operatic story of these two iconic companies, which started off as mentor and protege, and over the decades ultimately became arch enemies and fought probably the most historic patent battle ever in the federal court. So I got to experience this man firsthand, and you just couldn't help but be impressed by the intellect, what he had accomplished in his life, and so many lessons that I learned. In the beginning of my book, I have a whole page of what I call landisms, and they're just, some of the statements that he's made, some of the quotes that he's made over the course of his career that just are
what are some
important.
What are some of those that have impacted you and that you think that have really kind of had sort of a national impact? What are some of those that come to mind?
Well, just basically, one, no problem is unsolvable if you put enough time and effort into it. It's just an attitude that anything can be worked out if you apply yourself. He also believed that no problem was worth addressing unless it seemed like it was impossible to address. It's this indefatigability that he exuded was really inspirational to me, and I think that it's an important lesson that people need to embrace.
Well, we're talking with Ron Fierstein, who is also you got an interesting relative in your life. Who might that be?
Well, my brother Harvey is a brilliant playwright and actor, and he has made an amazing impact on the American theater. In fact, on June 8th, he's going to be receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Tony Awards. It's funny, when he found out that this was going to happen, he said to me, Ron, I'm not old enough for that. I said, well, Harvey, You may not be the oldest, but you're certainly the most deserving.
Oh, wow. Nothing like the brotherly love. That's pretty cool. You know, Ron, Chicago has its own sort of legend, if you will, in the space of photography. I mean, we've got... I will be joking around with friends about every now and again. I'll throw out you just had an Annie Leibovitz moment with regard to someone taking a great photograph with their iPhone or their Android. But right here in Chicago, we've got some great names that I'm sure you're familiar with, from Victor Skrebnetsky to Vivian Meyer, John White, really that have been legends here in the Chicago area. Juan Fujita. And the list goes on. And they all probably in some way have, and I'm sure you probably experienced this in your work, have some, recognition and respect for how Edwin Land impacted the landscape, no pun intended, of photography.
Well, there was, one of the things that Land understood was the intersection of science and art and business as well. And he really put a lot of time and effort into that aspect of things. I mean, he used Ansel Adams, who's another very famous photographer, as you know, landscape photographer, was a very key advisor to Land. In fact, the SX70 camera, which is the one that most people think of, it's the latest. It's the one that came out in 1972, where the picture would just emerge from the camera and you'd hold it in your hand and watch it develop without any manipulation. Well, that camera was an SLR camera, single lens reflex camera, which is, a sophisticated kind of camera. And it was only because Ansel Adams insisted to Land that he go through the trouble, and it was quite an engineering feat to make a folding camera that was a single lens reflex camera. Andy Warhol, for example, is very famous for using Polaroid, and there's a whole genre of art that is based upon using Polaroid cameras and film. So it was something that didn't happen by accident. It was something that Land recognized and nurtured.
That's really fascinating, and all the names, and that's why when I was thinking about this, I was like, there's so many people that have been impacted by this one instrument of history, this Polaroid camera, and to your point, and I didn't even realize this until I started to do a little bit more digging into the science behind this and the technology that we've all come to know as this, you press a button, and that was one of the other things when you were describing the camera. The sound that it made was also part of the intrigue when it was, kicking out that most recently taken photograph. Just the whole process that was endearing to the community over a number of years, and I know that's what a lot of people came to like about that particular camera. Wow. It's been great having you with us this morning, Ron, and shout out to your brother, Harvey, for his upcoming award, which is well-deserved. If you haven't seen any of his work, you guys need to check out what Harvey's done. But, Ron, thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for the history lesson in this space. This is part of American history, something that we all have been impacted by, and that's photography in one way or another. And it's you don't have to be an artist, but if you've got a phone today, you are suddenly a photographer. So this history is very relevant to where we are today and how we've come together as a community. So, Ron, how can folks plug into the documentary? How can folks find it? Where would you direct people to go?
Well, look at your local PBS station. The name of the show is American Experience. The name of this episode is Mr. Polaroid. And it is premiering on Monday evening, May 19th. I believe it's 8 p.m. Chicago time, but you should double check on that. I know it's 9 p.m. New York time. They did a brilliant job telling the story of Land and his life and his company, Polaroid. But there's so much more to the story, and if people are more interested, they can actually pick up my book, available on Amazon, called The Triumph of Genius. And it's just a fascinating story, the Land and, again, this relationship between Polaroid and Kodak that evolved over the decades. It's for nonfiction readers. it's a really interesting story, in my humble opinion.
Absolutely. Well, Ron Fierstein, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time out to talk a little bit about part of American history, and we look forward to potentially having you back in the future. But for now, thanks again for being with us, Ron. Have a fantastic day and weekend, and a big shout out to the work that you're doing.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. All the best.
All the best. Have a great day. Bye now. How about that, guys? I mean, I nerd out on some photography, and I'll tell you why. It was one of the first things and I remember I took a photography class in 9th grade in high school, and it was such a cool thing. I mean, to his point about the Polaroid land camera, I mean, it was something else back in the day if you had one. And if you don't know about this camera, guys, in terms of American history, you check out this documentary. It'll talk about Mr. Polaroid, or Edwin Land is its title, Mr. Polaroid, An American Experience. But I think it'll be a good, how do we want to put this, Henry? It'll be a good way for people to watch something that may inspire you a little bit. And I don't want to use this word the wrong way, but a positive distraction. A positive thing to watch that will remind you of some of the great things that our country has done. So why don't we grab a quick call as we wrap up? My man Earl's been waiting for a bit. Good morning, Earl. Welcome to the show.
Good morning there, Rich. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
And I'll be brief, but I used to love photography too, so we kind of share a common interest.
Yeah, it is. It's we could go on and on about that, and one of the cool things about it, photography captures a moment, which then becomes part of our history. Isn't that kind of a unique way of looking at it? You take a picture, and it gives us a way to look back at something that took place even a minute ago, yet alone a year ago or 10 years ago. So anyhow.
Well, that's a wonderful way of saying a time machine. Yes, it allows you to look back in time, and I find myself enjoying family photographs that I used to take at family outings. Seeing who's still amongst us and who's gone up, and who were babies and what they look like, and how much trouble I used to give them when they were shorties, that kind of thing, that I used to enjoy doing.
Oh, too fun. So what's going on, Earl?
The reason why I called in today was I wanted to try to say to the audience that we often criticize the Republican Party for not having a spine, not standing up to Trump. But I'm suggesting that is not necessarily true. If you look at what's going on with this plane out of Qatar, there are many voices in the Republican Party that are speaking out against it. And the point I'm making there was all of that stuff that was going on with the USAID and all of the troubles and trials and tribulations with, cutting the staffing of all of these governmental programs that aid the poor and the social safety net were stalwarts of the Republican Party. They've always wanted to do these things, and they were very happy to let Doge run rampant through the government, cutting back these, these departments without necessarily putting a name to it. But you can see how they giving Trump blowback on the airplane thing, that they will stand up to him when they think that he's making a mistake.
I think a great point, Earl. One of the things that popped in my mind when you were saying that is they've been complicit because it's what they've wanted, and that's kind of what you're saying. It's not like they don't have a spine. It's just that they've chosen to not exercise the power that they do have because it's what they want. And so your point is well taken and kind of spot on. And sometimes we miss that. This is what they wanted. Now, as it relates to the plane, they know that's a line that is so crossed, so blatant, so obvious that they have to say something on this one because there are people in their constituency that are going, okay, I may not want to see, people coming across the border from the southern border, blah, 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 whatever it might be. But getting a plane, I mean, come on, dude, get refocused on the things that really matter. So they're standing up because they probably, I don't know this, but I would presume, Earl, that they're probably getting some calls in their offices saying, you got to say something about the damn plane, because that's a bridge that, no pun intended, that's a plane that's too far to cross.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking my call, man, and I'll keep listening to you. You take care.
Thanks, Earl. Have a great day. Appreciate your contribution. All right, guys. Yeah, I mean, Earl makes a good point there. I mean, the Republicans have stood up in this particular, some have, not all, but many we've seen. But there's a number of Republicans that are saying, this is a plane too far. But what I don't want to do, and I have to catch myself with this, is I don't want to give them credit for doing their job. That's their job, is to do that. I will take the criticism or the observations maybe from you guys when you say, hey, Richard, we can't always just beat up on the Republicans. We have to have, and this goes back to the clip that we played from Pete Buttigieg. I agree. I'm not, Henry, did I call did I say that Republicans were stinky? I said that we can call them that based on what they're doing. Yeah, but we can't just say Republicans are stinky or maggots are stinky. That doesn't work. We have to have a forward-thinking, solutions-based way of operating. And a lot of people may say, well, you can't call. Well, then you can't call them. If we as progressive liberal Democrats are being told by MAGA that we can't call them a particular thing based on their actions, then you can't really call the progressive liberal Democrats the opposite of that, because then you're being hypocritical. And I get that, where people go, well, you shouldn't be name calling. I totally get that. And I have had to catch myself in that space, which is why I said earlier with what Pete Buttigieg says, we have to be willing as progressive liberal Democrats to have a conversation about solutions. We can call out, we have to call out Republicans. I don't care what any person that's a MAGA, a GOP person says, y'all's ideas don't make sense. You think that they do, but they don't. They're not for the greater good of all of the country. They might be good for a segment of, but not for all of the country. Historically, and certainly in my lifetime, Democratic policies and ideas have been better for a greater number of people. But there are biases, sexism, racism, Christian nationalism, and privilege that don't allow Republican ideas to be broad enough for a number of people, a larger number of people throughout the country. But we as progressive liberal Democrats do have to take the role and the responsibility of calling out MAGA, calling out GOP Republicans, and then having something that's better. So I agree with many who've said we can't just, throw shade at them without having a solution. I fully agree with that, and I will correct myself in that space. But we're not going to yield and go, well, just because you said we can't talk about your bad ideas, that we're going to go run and pack up our tent. That's not going to happen. So anybody that wants to challenge and say, well, you guys are this and that or the other, you can't point the finger at us about how we talk to you and then turn around and point the finger at us about how we talk to you by talking about us and calling us names. This is not going to sell. It's not going to happen. Lee McGowan, earlier in the show, we played a clip. Call Congress. Part of the solution is that opportunity. Make sure you are calling, and as she said it, I've said it before too, many of us have said it. Don't just call your leader in your district or in your state. Call those in others that are not getting the job done. And if those are in red states or districts, call them. Let them know. We're watching you, and we don't agree with what you're saying and what you're doing. And to Earl's point, remind them that it's their job to stand up to Donald Trump. It's not their job to go along with Donald Trump. It's their job to stand up for the people that sent them to Congress. And many of them in that district that didn't vote for that particular representative want them to stand up and do a better job. So I'm going to keep bringing it to you guys as best that I can, is that we have to call Congress. We have to stand up. We have to call our state legislators. We have to remind, because everyone that we've had on that is an elected official on any level has said, reach out to your elected officials. So thanks, Lee McGowan, for that at the top of the show. Thank my man Henry for keeping us on the rails, particularly when we've got back-to-back guests. But as I always say, guys, thanks for being with us. Take a deep breath and make your life count. We will see you tomorrow.
This is Tony Moray. I'm an estate planning lawyer who drafts living trusts and wills. Since the election, I've been hearing from my clients, many of them fellow WCPT listeners, and we all wonder, how did this happen and what can we do? The how is, of course, very complicated. My thoughts as regard to what we can do is simple but important. We need to take extra care of those we love. Having an estate plan using either a living trust or will can provide comfort in uncertain times like these. When the progressive values we hold dear are under attack, I feel we must make sure that our personal lives are secure and then work out from there. I've been